we are done with the first 9 months of the year, and we're going to look at sales for Toyota here in North America. But before we do, we need to just quickly take a glance at where things stand for the automotive industry. If we look overall, gosh, there's so many more than usual because typically just a handful of manufacturers post their monthly results. And I love that. But quarterly, now that Q3 is over, everyone has results. And well, besides Mercedes-Benz and a few others that are going to do it later this month, I think Volvo might be. And no, Volvo's right here. Someone else. Anyways, there are other manufacturers that still yet to post, but there's typically smaller players. All right. So with that being said, look at where the market's at. On the year, it's up 4%. On the quarter, it's up 6%. But let's look at the month of September. Again, less people are going to post about September only. The majority, or should I say at least half of the manufacturers will post quarterly. All right. So up 6.7%, at least for the ones reporting on the month of September. And don't worry, I'll cover a lot of these other manufacturers in following videos. So stay tuned for these updates, especially on Honda. We'll talk about the Koreans, Hyundai, Kia. We'll talk about Nissan because we finally have numbers for Nissan. They only post quarterly, etc. All right. So let's jump straight into Toyota's sales. Again, 6% is what the industry was up. Where was Toyota? Well, Toyota by themselves, not Lexus, was up about 9%. Lexus is up 14%. That's just, that's on a DSR. That's daily selling rate. That means there are less selling days this year compared to last year for the month of September. But check this out. Lexus, in terms of volumes, up nearly 20%. Toyota's up 13%, all right, which is way above where they have been so far this year. Let's start with the Corolla. The Corolla up 17%, which is outpacing the 1 to 2% it's been up this year. Check out my review on the FX. It sucks, right? The Corolla FX sedan, like the powertrains is so bad on it. All right, it's hybrid or bust for me on the Corolla. All right, unless you get some stupid deal on the gas model. Anyways, the Supra, watch my driving impressions on it. I just drove it out at Sonoma on the racetrack and driving from the racetrack back to my hotel. All right, the Supra is fantastic, but it is gone. It's officially dead. All right, it's been down 14% on the year. GR86, 16% down on the year, up 31% on the month. That's good. Long live GR Gazoo Racing. All right, Mirai. Who cares about fuel cell? Crown. And I'm talking about the Crown sedan here. The Crown sedan was up 39%. They must have had some good incentives or something because it's been down 50% on the year. In fact, it was worse than 50% down. So not sure. Maybe there's some good incentives on the Crown there. Prius. Oh, this is not what you want to see as a Prius fan. Down 27%, up 63% on the year. Don't know what's going on with the Prius volume right now. It's a bit concerning. All right, Camry though. Camry and RAV4 are the two best buys in the Toyota lineup. It's also their two best selling vehicles. All right, up 3% on the year, up 7% on the month. Go Camry. Camry LE, shout out, $30,000 or less. 50 plus, sometimes over 60 miles per gallon. Love that car. And it's comfortable and it's smooth. Anyways, let's keep moving. Watch all my videos on the Camry LE. Lexus IS. Well, we are still awaiting the refresh. And the refresh probably will come in January. All right, it's up 2% on the year. That's amazing for a luxury sedan. Okay, or any sedan in that regard. All right, but the IS is up 22% on the month. My guess is that there's maybe some really good incentives as they need to get rid of their current stock before the refresh comes. When the refresh comes, incentives are going to be slim to none. And this is, any V8s that are still laying around, they're going to be bought up because the V8's dead. All right, so that could have spurred some sales as well for the IS. RC, rest in peace. ES, well, January is when we'll start getting them from Japan with their new redesign. It'll be fully electric. Sales on the ES, I expect to go down next year. And right now, people are seeing that if you want a V6, if you want a true sedan and not some weird EV lift back look-alike sort of thing, now's your time. Now's your time to buy an ES before the V6 is gone. And I think that's why the sales are up here. That's just my guess, though. LS, rest in peace. Watch my video on the demise of the LS and the official cancellation. It's really sad. LC down 51%. And what I'm hearing from Japan is that they just have a few V8s remaining that they've already made. I think they've stopped production on the 5-liter V8. And so once the V8s have run their course, the LC is also dead. All right. So, that hurts me to say, as much as it hurts me to say the LS is gone. But the current LS sucks. The LC 500 is a masterpiece. All right. So the LC, seeing this sort of volume is really sad. And so now what you're going to have here with the RC being dead, the LS being dead, the LC, you're not going to have a coupe in the lineup. It's crickets. Now, Lexus can fix that with the Japan Mobility Show. Remember the Japan Mobility Show this year? They're saying, hey, this is the moment. This is the biggest moment for our company's history since Lexus launched in 1989. And the only way I am going to take a bite out of that and run with that sort of hype is if they pull this off. If the LFR gets an official announcement. Okay, this is different here. This is not the LFR, more than likely. This is more than likely a battery electric vehicle. Or Lexus's own spin on the Gazoo Racing GR-GT car. Anyways, they got to have a flagship coupe. That would be amazing. That's got to be at the show. And remember these concepts that were debuted in 2021. If these don't get revealed in some sort of production form, give me a crumb and I'll be happy. But if they don't do anything with these sort of masterful designs on an IS EV or an IS anything. I don't care. I just want this design. I don't care if it's an EV. I don't care if it's an inline six. Well, I do. I would rather have an inline six IS. Obviously, the first gen had the 2JZ engine, but an IS convertible, an IS wagon, shooting brake sort of thing, a lifted IS wagon. You know, this is kind of molded into the car I just showed you a second ago. This car right here, that's kind of what this concept evolved into. I still believe it's a battery electric. All right. So if this IS design is not pushed further ahead at the Japan Mobility Show, I'll be disappointed. More than likely, it's going to be this, the LFZC, which the concept debuted at last Japan Mobility Show, so that was in 2023, and I brought that to you guys on my channel. This is likely what we're going to see instead of, in my opinion, this is a much better looking vehicle, a much smoother and more iconic looking design. And you can tell these are BEVs designs because, well, look how long the hood is, right? There's no hood line here to separate the hood from this piece. Now, maybe that's because it's a bit conceptualized, but man, it really lengthens the hood and it looks incredible without partitioning the hood off. All right, so I know I got a little bit off track there. All right, but yes, without a follow-up for an RC and LC, and if there's just crickets for Lexus, I'm going to be supremely disappointed because a Lexus, ever since 1990, 91, they've had a coupe in their lineup. The original SC 300, 400, SC 430. You had the IS coupe convertible. You had the LFA. You had the RC, and you had the LC. Now we're getting to a point where we could very likely not only not have a flagship sedan, but not have a flagship coupe or even a mid-range coupe for Lexus. Very, very worrisome. However, remember Gazoo Racing, based off of my last video, it's again, take it with a grain of salt. Gazoo Racing could be selling all of their sports cars inside of Lexus dealerships. Still no Lexus coupe in that regard. It would be a Gazoo Racing car, even though it's sold at a Lexus dealership. Let's keep moving. BZ. What the heck is going on with the BZ? Look at this. What just happened with this car? I thought that it was getting a refresh. Notice they don't say BZ4X anymore. It's down 10% on the year, but on the month, where everyone else saw BEV gains because of the end of the tax credit, as well as them pumping money into incentives, a lot of these companies that have EVs, so they're not stuck with trying to sell it once the EV tax credit is gone, which is going to be a huge hurdle. BZ down 95%. They sold just 61. That I got to see what's going on. I'm looking for the BZ. Okay, they're en route. They're not quite available yet. So that kind of sucks, lack of a better word, for this car, because by the time it arrives, it has no EV tax credit to help it sell. Now, it is objectively better than the pre-refresh BZ4X, but that's why sales are down immensely. And there's only 4 BZ4Xs still left. Anyways, that is hilarious to see their EV sales just fall off a cliff when you would think the complete opposite with the last month of EV tax credit. Toyota doesn't care about BEVs right now. Long term, maybe, but right now they don't give a you-know-what. They care about the RAV4. That prints money for them. The Camry, maybe not so much, even though the volume's high on it, but the RAV4 prints money from the Corolla Cross Hybrid, prints money. The Grand Highlander prints money. The 4Runner. Okay, these vehicles are core right now for Toyota. The RAV4, the BZ4X, the BZ isn't even on sale. All right, so look at the sales volume here. Toyota sold almost 37,000 RAV4s in the month of September. That is just, it hurts my head to think about. Now, they're up 2%. Last year, they sold 475,000 RAV4s. But here's the issue. They're redesigning the RAV4 this year. And that means like next month. So while currently it has a sales lead versus the all-time record last year, there will be a hiccup in production as they switch over from the old model to the new model. Now, how much will that hiccup be? I don't know. This vehicle is made in Ontario and it's made in Kentucky. It's not going to beat last year's record, I don't think. I don't think so, because of the stop in production, maybe for a week, maybe 2 weeks, as they switch over to the new model. Despite that, the last model year of this RAV4, people don't care. They're just like, I just want a RAV4. Just give me the RAV4, give me the RAV4 hybrid. Or maybe if you don't want a RAV4 hybrid, this is your last chance, kind of like the last chance of the last ES V6. All right, RAV4 absolutely slaying it. Insane volume, up 17% on the month, outpacing where it was last year. Corolla Cross. I just got a refresh. Watch my videos on it. I just drove the hybrid and the non-hybrid. The hybrid is significantly better. It also costs significantly more, but it's a much better driving experience, and it's worth the money over the non-hybrid Corolla Cross. So, yep. Moving on, Crown Signia. What? Crown Signia down 38%, but remember, Crown Sedan up 39%. They just flip-flopped there, completely flip-flopped. And so much that the Crown Sedan outsold the Crown Signia. That's weird. I don't have an explanation. I have a theory. Toyota could plan on killing off the Toyota Crown. All right. It is too close to the ES and it costs so much more than a Camry. Okay. They could have just like said, hey, we're going to pump the Crown in volume and maybe incentives to get rid of it, and maybe reduce the production volume in the Crown Signia because that's not going anywhere. It's a crossover wagon thing. All right. And it's better than the Crown Sedan, and it's more beautiful. It needs to have the Crown's Hybrid Max powertrain as an option in the Crown Signia, and it's just crickets, unfortunately. Meanwhile, in Japan, the Crown Estate, that's what they call the Crown Signia, they get a plug-in hybrid of it, and that would make it a near perfect Toyota. Let's keep moving. Venza, rest in peace. Highlander, yes, the volume keeps shrinking on it because, well, people would rather have a Grand Highlander, and it's made in the same plant. It's up 105,000%. How's that possible? It only sold 10 last year in the month of September because of the recall and stop sale. So Grand Highlander sold 10,000 units. What other Toyota has sold 10,000 plus units? Obviously the RAV4, the Corolla, the Camry, the Tacoma, the Tundra. We're talking about a vehicle here that is now the top 5 best-selling, if I did my math right there. You have the RAV4, then the Camry, then the Corolla, the Tacoma, then the Grand Highlander, because the Grand Highlander beat out the Tundra for 5th place just by a couple hundred units. So the Grand Highlander is now the 5th best-selling Toyota. Here's the thing. If they can make more Siennas, I wouldn't be surprised if the Sienna could sell as much as the Grand Highlander or come close. The Sienna has sliding doors, better cargo capacity, and better fuel economy on average compared to the Grand Highlander is a win. It's a better family vehicle, but the Grand Highlander is there for the never vanners out there. And it's just unfortunate that never vanners still exist. All right. But that's just the way it is. Buy what you want. Buy what makes you happy, regardless if it makes your life easier or not. Grand Highlander up 80% on the year. And it's the 5th best-selling vehicle. All right. 4Runner. Well, it's up 17%. It's still down 40% on the year. It's heading in the right direction. They had a lot of issues last year with supply and maybe production snags out of the Tahara plant in Japan. All right. But it's doing fine now. All right. Sequoia up 9% on the month, down 4% on the year. Okay. Whatever. Sequoia is one of the last picks in the large SUV body on frame segment. I would take so many other vehicles over the Sequoia, and the first would be an Armada. All right. The Land Cruiser down 30% on the month, up 92% on the year. Don't know what's going on with it. It could be quality control issues, or they could just be allocating more production for the 4Runner. I'm not sure. All right. Sienna, like I said, up 50% on the year, up 17% on the month. It's cranking right along. The minivan segment is blossoming. I haven't looked at Odyssey sales. I haven't looked at Carnival sales, but the way things have been going this year, minivans are back. And the demand for minivans is immensely high. That's why I was saying to Nissan, straight to their faces at every event, bring the Elgrand / Nissan Quest back. Bring it as the e-Power, and you're cooking with fire there. All right. But yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Tacoma. The Tacoma is doing things that don't make sense. And my guess is that they're selling a lot of Tacoma to fleet, to businesses, to airports, to municipalities, to rental companies. That's my guess. I don't have anything to substantiate that. The Tacoma is up 13% on the month and up 61% on the year. Okay, it sold 204,000 units so far. I'm going to bust out the calculator because this one is mind-bending. The Tacoma, 204,000 units divided by 9 times, where were they at this month? Okay, so they're slowing down a little bit. They're averaging about 22,500 vehicles per month. And sales, that's huge. Again, guys, that's almost as much as the Camry, and it's more than the Corolla. It is the 3rd best-selling Toyota. But if we multiply this by 12, that's 272,000 units that they are pacing this year. Let's look at all-time Tacoma sales. All right. Well, Tacoma sales peaked maybe in 2021. 252,000. We go back to my calculator here. They might beat that by 20,000 units. No V6, turbo 4 cylinders crushing it. That is mind blowing to see this sort of record sales pace for the Tacoma. And they're on pace to not just beat it, but to shatter the record that was set in 2021. Mind-blowing. And last year they sold 192,000. Nothing to sneeze at, but they had supply issues last year. All right, as they switched over to the new model, they still had supply chain snags. Holy cannoli, or should I say hot tamale, because all the Tacomas are built in Mexico, 2 separate plants. Let's get back to sales. All right, Tundra. Well, what's going on with the Tundra? Down 14% on the month and down 5% on the year. Okay. People I've spoken with, my sources have said there are quality control issues going on with Tundra, build quality issues. If that's the case, and I don't think it's engine related, but if that's the case, then that's why production and sales are probably down on this truck. Meanwhile, its stablemate that's built in San Antonio, the Sequoia, is up on the month. Maybe the Sequoia is not having quality control issues and they can build more of them and therefore sell more of them. Whereas the Tundra is just, it's not looking good. All right. By the way, I'm driving a new Ram 1500 this week with a Hemi with the e-torque mild hybrid. It's a very good truck. And I am excited to tell you, like, where does it rank? Is it take my money? Is it, is it pay me to drive? Somewhere in between. All right. I'll definitely rank it on the spreadsheet, of course. All right. So the Lexus crossovers, let's get into them. Crossovers and SUVs, and then we'll wrap this up. Lexus UX. This vehicle is long overdue for any sort of update. This vehicle came out in end of 2018, I remember. I was selling for Lexus at the time. It's very small and it's underpowered compared to the competition, but it gets great fuel economy. It is kind of cute if you want to see it that way, or if you're able to see it that way. It's kind of neutral in the year, but it had a decent month. The problem I have with the UX is that a Prius is better, a Corolla Cross is almost as good, and they cost way less. The UX has better seats. That's always a given. A Lexus is always going to have infinitely better seats than a Toyota counterpart. If you compare like an ES to a Camry, no comparison. An ES even to a Crown, still no comparison. All right, let's keep moving. NX. Lexus NX up 3% on the month. The DSR, though, is not good. It's not selling at a slower clip, actually, than it was last year for the month of September. They may have maxed out what they can produce and sell for this model, or getting close. It's up 7% on the year. Meanwhile, I thought EVs were going to have a great month. This is laughable. Lexus, we're still waiting for the refreshed RZ. With new e-axles that the BZ4X successor, the BZ, has. All right. So the RZ, there's just no availability on it. And I'm sure if the new RZ was out and the new BZ was out, they would have sold more than just a handful of electric crossovers. But still, Lexus fans in general don't care that much for electric cars. RX. Their cash cow, their all-time best-selling vehicle, down 3.5% on the year, is up 1% on a volume basis, but down 3% on a selling rate basis for the month of September. It's down 3,000 units this year. Why? Well, look, the NX and the RX are built in Ontario. So you have a little bit of a drawback in production or sales volume in the RX, but the NX is making up for it. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. TX, though, like the Grand Highlander, where you see these weird numbers, up 442,000%. It's because of the stop sale last year and the recall. Grand Highlander, again, up 80% on the year. TX up 85% on the year. What's mind-blowing is that the Grand Highlander sold, let's just say 100,000 units, and the TX has sold, let's say 40,000 units. So the Grand Highlander has more than double the sales. And how that's kind of out of proportion, because if you look at the RX, 80,000 units versus, if you summed up the volume from the RAV4 to the Highlander and the Crown Signia, for example, all right, it is maybe a 1/6 of the sales, something like that. That's bad math, but it's somewhere around 1/6 of the sales compared to the Toyota lineup. All right, so Lexus is really focusing on this TX, making sure it has tons of volume. You got to keep in mind, not only is it on like a year's worth of demand built up, so you have 2 years worth of demand on this vehicle minimum just from the stop sale, but you also have the decade's worth of demand for this vehicle. What do I mean by that? Well, Lexus has never had a usable family car. It's always been a compromised body on frame 3-row SUV in the GX or the LX. They've never had a true family serving crossover. Now that they do, demand is enormous for it, and it is taking a huge bite out of the Acura MDX, as we'll find out in my separate Honda and Acura video. The TX is gobbling up sales right now, and good for Lexus. I wish this vehicle was available when I was selling for Lexus. My biggest issue with it is that you cannot get 7, let alone 8 seats in the hybrid or the plug-in hybrid. And there's no entry-level hybrid for now. They trademarked TX400H. I made a whole video on that. Check that out. the TX 400H is going to even create more demand for the TX than it already has. So nice job, Lexus, with the TX. Now just give us more seats and more powertrains, and they will be making that mofo rain. GX, huge demand for this truck. It's up 35% on the year. Why is it down 14% if the demand is high? There's something going on in Tahara that is snagging the production of this vehicle and the Land Cruiser. That's I'm pretty sure the GX is only built in the Tahara. I think the Land Cruiser sometimes is built in the Hamada, which is the Toyota auto body plant. There's something fishy going on, because I know that there's a huge demand for Lexus GXs. I know there is. All right. It is one of the hottest selling Lexuses right now, probably in how short a day supply that they have. All right. So the Lexus LX also doing quite well, up 19%. Well, the hybrid is available on it, and it's way better, in my opinion. Some people might disagree. It's way better than the twin turbo V6 non-hybrid. All right. So just when you're spending $100K, spend a little bit more to get the hybrid on the LX, and most of you are going to see that it is smoother, more powerful, more efficient, and quieter than the twin turbo V6 non-hybrid. Toyota Lexus, and if I go back to my email, we have Andrew Gilliland. He's a senior vice president at Toyota Motor in North America. Last time I saw him was HQC, probably 4 years ago. I had lunch next to him, and he kind of let slip the capstone at the table. He's like, wait, Capstone's not going to be at this event, is it? And he's asking some of the PR people. I already knew about Capstone, sort of, at the time, even though it had been officially revealed for the Tundra, the Sequoia. Anyways, it was just a fun little nugget, and maybe he did it on purpose because, well, journalists, we like to run with that stuff. I'm not really a journalist. I'm just a passionate car guy. All right. Anyways, he's hilarious. He's really funny. He's a car guy through and through. He says strong customer demand continues across our entire lineup. Vehicles are selling as fast as we build them. If that's not a flex, I don't know what is. The car is sold the second it comes off the assembly line. It's just out of control how fast Toyota is selling compared to the competition, and it's not even fair. Remember, this is July, so this is not the most updated, but here's Toyota and Lexus down here. 32 and 33 days supply car inventory, compared to the industry average, which is higher than this now. Their cars are mostly pre-sold. There's no other way to explain it. All right, a huge chunk anyways is they're pre-sold before they even hit the ground. The cars already have a deposit on them. That's when you have full control of the market. Your crap doesn't stink. There's nothing that can be done unless they massively screw it up, but they're operating in a completely different environment than the rest of the legacy car makers. Completely different environment. So just because their sales, if we go back to Automotive News, where they have the full score sheet here, all right, you see some impressive stuff like Mini up 37%. All right, finally the Coopers are back. All right, that's a big reason. All right, you see maybe Hyundai doing quite well. All right, Lucid, right, because of the tax credit. All right, what Tesla? I'm really curious about Tesla. I think they actually have Tesla. Tesla's even down despite the lack of tax credit, but that's another nut to crack in a different video. So you have other companies that are doing as well as Toyota or Lexus, at least in terms of sales volume versus what they accomplished last year. God, look at VinFast. What the most doesn't make it the brand. So you might have Hyundai and Kia kind of in this area that are still selling well, but they're having to incentivize their cars quite a bit in order to try to even come within eating Toyota and Lexus's dust in terms of how fast they sell cars. Honda is kind of hanging on a different level with Toyota and Lexus. All right. And then it's just like this boom, this crescendo of days supply, cars sitting on lots, and these manufacturers, even though their numbers look good in terms of sales, they're not doing that great. They're really heavily incentivizing the cars, not only at the manufacturer level with, let's say, special APRs or special rebates, things like that, cash incentives, but the dealers are having to wheel and deal a lot more than they have in the past 5 years post-COVID. All right, so what does this mean for the consumer? Other than Toyota and Lexus, maybe Honda customers, but I would say mainly just Toyota. Outside of Toyota and Lexus, you can wheel and deal, you can bargain, you can set your price with whatever car you want, as long as it doesn't have a Toyota or Lexus badge on it. If you want a Toyota and Lexus, you're paying more times than not. It depends on the car because there are deals to be had on things like base Camrys, but for the most part, you're paying full price. Full asking price. And in some cases, people don't care. They just want a Toyota or a Lexus and they'll pay over asking. That is still going on. And that's why you have this huge discrepancy in day supply. Toyota, keep doing what you're doing. Keep giving us good cars. And then, stay tuned. Japan Mobility Show. I'll be there in about 3.5 weeks. Yes. And I'll be driving the new RAV4 before I even go to Japan. You want to make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell icon on the channel because this is a massive month for Toyota and Lexus. It's going to be monumental. It's going to be historic. And I cannot wait to share it with you. Make sure you are staying around the channel. All right, let's address one of your comments. You guys appreciate this. In my video yesterday, yes, I got a haircut. You can't tell. I was a little shaggy there. If in my video yesterday, if you missed it, I was talking about how the Lexus RX is going to be getting a V6, more than likely in a plug-in hybrid variant called the 550h Plus. Let's get into the comments. Vincenzo, he's happy that he bought a 2022 RX 450h. Again, that's a V6 hybrid before they went crazy with the 4 cylinders. He says, long live the V6 with good fuel economy. Salim Randall is saying, great, bring back the V8, stop playing games. Hey, I'm driving a Hemi right now this week, and it is glorious. I can't wait to talk about how good it is with you guys listening to the exhaust and the engine. It's a really good truck because the engine is just so refined. Lexus should never have gotten rid of the V6 and the RX. Well, I wish that was the case, but emissions and CAFE stopped that from happening or stopped the V6 from continuing on. But now, think whatever you want of the current administration, the current president. One of the saving graces is that bigger engines can be allowed now, okay, because of no penalties due to not meeting your CAFE standards or requirements, and EPA not having a all-ruling oversight over car manufacturers, all right? So it is a much more free market in that regard in terms of powertrains going forward. How long? I don't know. Politics change by the second. So at least for now, try to get that V6 if it comes back in an RX. Try to get a V8 and a pickup truck if you can get it. And that's where Toyota's SOL. Everyone wants the 5.7 liter V8 back in the Tundra and the Sequoia, even the Land Cruiser. All right. And it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. All right. The V8's getting killed in the LC500 as well. Ric Flair Nature Boy. Hell yeah. So, little secret on Instagram, I'm a follower of like no context Ric Flair. It's just ridiculous memes with Ric Flair. Anyways, big fan of the Nature Boy. All right. Happy that we have like minds because you also like a 2022 with the V6. So anyways, I'm going to shut it down there. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned. I got so many more news updates in terms of car sales I got to pump out. Probably 1-2 a day for the next few days, but I will be taking some time off this weekend. All right, so maybe on the back half of this weekend, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll get back into sales after Friday. So stay tuned. Thank you guys. Have a great day and peace.